Welcome to another deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So you're here with us because you're interested in the wellspring of creativity.
Yes.
You want to know, I think, how people just like us can pull off extraordinary creative feats. But you don't want to have to wade through like super dense academic jargon, right?
Absolutely.
So today we're going to distill some seriously potent insights on how to become more creative, like way more creative.
Right.
And we're going to be drawing those insights from a source we've been really diving into.
Yeah.
It's called nuni.pdf.
Okay.
And it translates to change your mind.
I like it.
Yeah, it's really good. It offers a fresh perspective on like unleashing your creative potential.
It does.
And, we want to make sure we give you the most potent and practical takeaways so you can really apply these ideas.
Yeah.
And the source kind of breaks down the essence of creative achievement into 3 key areas we're going to explore together today.
Okay.
First, we'll uncover some real-world strategies to enhance your creative abilities. And then we'll delve into how to harness fear and anxiety and actually transform them into powerful catalysts for creativity.
I love that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And finally, we'll glean some super insightful lessons from the lives of wildly successful creators.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, so let's kick things off at the very foundation of creative success.
Self-belief.
Okay.
The source, Change Your Mind, emphasizes the power of believing in yourself.
Right.
Even, and maybe especially, when faced with like a massive setbacks and criticism. And it's interesting because in many aspects of life, strong, like rigid beliefs can limit us, right? Yeah. But for her creator, this deep faith in their own vision, it's like a shield against negativity.
It really is. It's like a force field.
Yeah, it's a force field.
Protecting them from the doubts and the inevitable criticism that comes their way.
Right, and it allows them to stay true to their artistic impulses even when the external world is like, I don't think so. Right, and it's often driven by like a really intrinsic kind of motivation.
Yeah.
Not just chasing external validation.
Exactly. To illustrate this point, the source gives the example of Edward Manet.
Manet.
Yes, the painter.
Oh, yeah.
He was instrumental in that transition from realism to impressionism.
Right, yeah. I remember learning about him in like art history class.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But his journey was like anything but smooth sailing.
Yeah, right? His style, with those loose brushstrokes.
Right.
And that bold way of depicting everyday life, it initially got some serious pushback.
It was like he was like public enemy #1 in the art world for a while.
It was seen as so jarring,
yeah.
so unfinished to those who were used to the more like polished, academic style of painting.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just like polite disagreement.
Oh no.
People straight up mocked his exhibitions.
Oh wow.
Like imagine putting your heart and soul into your work and then having people just like rip it apart. Yeah. Publicly, yeah.
Yeah, and the official salons, which were like the big leagues of the art world back then, they repeatedly rejected his work.
Oof.
Yeah, tough. Right?
Yeah, it would be crushing, really.
But this is where Manet's self-belief really shines.
Okay, how so?
Instead of letting this rejection crush him, he decided to take matters into his own hands.
Okay.
During the Paris World Fair, he set up his own exhibition tent.
Wow.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to wait for the art establishment to give him the nod.
It's some serious chutzpah.
Yeah, he created his own platform.
He did.
To showcase his work. And eventually, his persistence did pay off.
It did.
His painting, Olympia, finally got accepted into the Paris Salon.
Okay.
But even then, it caused a huge uproar, right?
Oh, yeah.
People were scandalized by the subject matter. They thought it was way too provocative.
Yeah.
And newspapers even published satirical cartoons mocking the painting.
Wow. So even with this, like, seeming success, the negativity didn't let up. No, it did not. But the point is, Manet, he never wavered in his belief in his artistic vision. He didn't let those prevailing opinions derail him.
Right.
And as we know, his work eventually got recognized for its groundbreaking nature, paving the way for like the whole Impressionist movement.
Exactly. He changed minds.
He did.
Isn't like the title of our source, Change Your Mind?
He totally did. And the takeaway here is that if you don't truly believe in your own ideas and your work, it's going to be super tough to convince anyone else of its value.
That's so true. You got to have that inner conviction.
Yeah.
Especially when you're facing those inevitable moments of doubt.
Yeah, exactly. And the source kind of reframes our understanding of happiness, doesn't it?
How so?
It suggests that real fulfillment doesn't come from, like, a lack of challenges.
Okay.
But rather from that struggle to overcome them.
Right. It's in the process
Yeah.
of facing those problems and finding solutions.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on to another key takeaway from Change Your Mind. The importance of consistent creative work.
Okay, interesting.
So, the book emphasizes this idea that successful creators across different fields, they all have this common thread.
Yeah.
They keep working consistently, no matter what's happening around them.
Right, they show up.
They show up.
Even when they don't feel like it.
Exactly. They don't let their moods dictate their creative output.
Yeah, the act of creation becomes like a daily ritual for them.
It's like a non-negotiable part of their lives.
Yeah.
And there's even some cognitive science research that suggests that consistent engagement with creative tasks can actually lead to this like incubation process.
Incubation?
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, it's like, you're working on something and maybe you get stuck.
Right.
But if you keep engaging with it, even in small bursts, like ideas can develop subconsciously.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So like while you're doing other things, your brain is still working on it in the background.
Exactly. And then like when you come back to it, you have these like aha moments.
Good. I love those.
Yeah, we all do.
So, okay, examples. What are some examples of creators who really embodied this consistency principle?
So the book gives us a couple of really powerful examples.
Okay.
First, there's Jean Genet, the writer.
Jean Genet.
Yeah. Now, get this. He was writing novels while he was in prison.
No way.
I know, right? Talk about limited resources and a challenging environment.
Yeah, talk about making the best of a bad situation.
Exactly. He was writing on burlap sacks, like literally scraps of fabric. And then he'd smuggle the manuscripts out to get published.
That is some serious dedication.
I know. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, it shows that the drive to create can be so strong, that it can overcome even the most difficult obstacles.
Exactly. Then there's Henri Matisse.
Okay, yeah, Matisse.
The painter, known for those vibrant, colorful works.
Oh, right, the cutouts, right.
Yes, the cutouts. But even before that, even in his later years when he was dealing with some serious health issues, needing help just to breathe, he kept creating. He was no longer able to stand at an easel and paint in the traditional way.
So what did he do?
So he shifted to this totally new method, the cutouts.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Where he'd direct assistants to arrange those like vibrantly colored pieces of paper.
Exactly. Even confined to his bed, he kept innovating.
And created some of his most iconic work, actually.
Yeah, he even designed the Rosar Chapel.
Wow, incredible.
I know, right? So, Change Your Mind. It distills this down to a really clear message.
Yeah.
Don't impose conditions on your creativity.
Yeah, I like that.
Don't wait for the perfect moment, the ideal environment, or the right mood. Just create.
Even when you don't feel like it.
Exactly.
Even when things aren't perfect.
Yeah, don't let those things become excuses.
Right, consistency is key.
It really is.
Okay.
Okay, now let's get into something really interesting.
Okay, what's that?
This part of the book, Change Your Mind, delves into how we think, like our cognitive processes. And it suggests that our society often emphasizes this, like left brain thinking.
Left brain,
Yeah.
like logic and language and numbers.
Exactly. And like sequential processing, step by step.
Right.
And it makes sense, our education systems, most jobs, they value these analytical skills.
Yeah, it's all about like breaking things down into smaller, manageable pieces.
Yeah. But Change Your Mind points out that creativity actually hinges on visual thinking,
Okay.
tapping into the right brain, so to speak.
Right, the side that's associated with like spatial reasoning and seeing patterns and connections.
Exactly. It's about going beyond language, thinking in images.
It's interesting, because like I've always been someone who thinks in pictures.
Yeah, me too.
Like even when I'm trying to solve a problem, I visualize it in my head.
Just like having a mental movie playing.
Exactly.
And the source gives us a couple of amazing examples of like super creative individuals who really harness this visual thinking power. Take Niels Bohr, the physicist.
Oh, yeah.
To wrap his head around the atom, which is so complex, he actually imagined it as a miniature solar system,
Oh, wow.
with electrons orbiting the nucleus, just like planets around the sun.
That's such a great visual.
I know, right? And it helped him conceptualize something that was like super abstract and difficult to grasp.
Right, because sometimes words and numbers just aren't enough to fully understand a complex idea.
Exactly. And then there's Albert Einstein.
Einstein?
Yeah. He was a huge proponent of visual thinking.
Really?
Yeah, he famously did this thought experiment where he imagined himself traveling at the speed of light while holding a mirror.
Oh.
It was a purely visual exercise, but it was fundamental to his development of like the theory of special relativity.
That's incredible. And he was known for saying that words and mathematical symbols didn't actually play a major role in his thought processes.
Exactly. And the book explains that this is because language and numbers, they're inherently linear.
Right. One word after the other. One number after the other.
Visual thinking, though, it's more fluid. You can process multiple elements at once. You can see the whole picture.
Yeah, it's like seeing the forest and the trees at the same time.
Exactly. And that allows for these intuitive leaps and connections that you might not get with linear thinking.
Okay, so how can we tap into this visual thinking power in our own lives?
Change Your Mind suggests incorporating more visual elements into your creative process.
Okay, so like drawing or sketching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like even if you don't consider yourself an artist, just the act of putting pen to paper and sketching out your ideas can help engage that visual part of your brain.
Right.
It's like you're externalizing those mental images.
Yeah, and giving them space to breathe.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to something that I know can be a major roadblock for a lot of people when it comes to creativity. The fear of failure.
Oh, yeah. I think we all struggle with that to some extent.
Right. But Change Your Mind offers this really liberating perspective on failure.
Oh.
It argues that failure isn't like an objective thing.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not like some universal truth that exists outside of us. It's more about how we choose to perceive it,
So like one person's failure might be another person's stepping stone?
Exactly. What one person sees as a complete disaster, another might see as a valuable learning experience.
Right. It's all about perspective.
Yeah, and the book points out that countless works of art that are now considered masterpieces were initially dismissed as failures.
Really? Like what?
Well, think about the Impressionists, for example.
Okay.
Their work was often seen as sloppy and unfinished.
Yeah, right.
They were breaking all the rules.
Yeah, and now they're like some of the most beloved artists in history.
Exactly. So Change Your Mind emphasizes that setbacks and perceived failures, they're just part of the process. And your response to those setbacks is what really matters.
Do you let them stop you, or do you learn from them and keep going?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the source, it really celebrates the resilience of creators who face criticism and setbacks, but don't give up.
They keep pushing forward.
They do.
They see those challenges as opportunities to grow.
Exactly. And to illustrate this point, the book gives us the example of, well, who else? Leonardo da Vinci.
Da Vinci.
Yeah. Now, he's considered a genius, right?
Right, the ultimate Renaissance man.
Exactly. But if you look at his actual output,
yeah,
he only completed a relatively small number of paintings, like maybe 17.
Really?
And some of those were left unfinished.
Huh.
But you have his notebooks.
Oh, yeah, the notebooks.
Packed with incredible ideas and inventions and observations.
But those weren't published during his lifetime, right?
No.
Interesting.
And he started all these ambitious architectural and engineering projects too, like canals and huge bridges, but many were never finished.
So was he a failure?
Right.
That's what the book asks, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Was Da Vinci a success or a failure?
It's a good question.
It really makes you rethink how we define success.
It does, because by some measures, number of completed projects, he might not look so successful, but the impact of his ideas and the influence he had on science and art, that's undeniable.
It's huge. And so Change Your Mind. It encourages us to just start where we are.
Right.
Use what we have and not wait for this perfect moment or perfect resources.
Start creating.
Yes. And the book quotes Jean Cocteau, who said, and this is so good, the only successful work of art is the one that failed.
I love that quote.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's embrace those imperfections. See those so-called failures as opportunities to learn and grow.
Yeah, it's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about something that I think resonates with a lot of us. That feeling of wanting to fit in.
Okay, yeah, we all want to be accepted.
Right. But Change Your Mind actually suggests that being different can be a huge advantage when it comes to creativity.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Because truly original thinkers, they don't feel bound by conventional ways of doing things.
Right. They kind of forge their own path.
They do. And in doing so, they end up creating these like totally new approaches and perspectives.
Like trailblazers.
Totally.
Right.
And the book gives us the perfect example of this. Michael Faraday.
Okay.
Now, he's like a giant in the history of science.
I know the name, but I don't really know his story.
Okay, well, he was one of the founders of like modern physics.
Wow.
But his education was like super unconventional.
What do you mean?
Well, he only had like basic schooling after elementary school.
Really? So he didn't have like a fancy degree?
No.
Yeah.
And he spent a lot of time like outdoors as a kid, not in a classroom.
Interesting.
And here's the really interesting part. He actually wasn't that well versed in like advanced math.
Wait, but isn't math like essential for physics?
You'd think, right. But because he wasn't bogged down by all the complex math of his time, he developed this really original and independent way of approaching scientific problems.
Oh, wow. So it was almost like an advantage.
In a way, yeah. He relied more on experimentation and like visual conceptualization.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Change Your Mind contrasts this with how traditional education can sometimes make us think in a more like conformist way.
It can kind of put us in a box.
Yeah, and Faraday, he was thinking outside that box.
Right, and that led to some truly groundbreaking discoveries.
It did. It's a reminder that sometimes not following the well-worn path can lead to amazing breakthroughs.
Absolutely. It's about embracing that different perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Change Your Mind highlights something else that's super important for creative success, but it's often overlooked.
What's that?
Courage.
Courage.
Yeah, because it's not enough to just have talent, you know?
Right, you got to have the guts to put it out there.
Exactly. You have to have the courage to express your ideas, to share your work with the world, even if it means facing potential criticism.
Yeah, it's about being vulnerable.
It is. And the book points out that there are probably so many amazing ideas that never see the light of day because people lack that courage.
I bet. It's scary to put yourself out there.
It is. And to illustrate this, Change Your Mind brings up Marcel Duchamp
Okay.
and his ready-mades.
Ready-mades. I'm not familiar with those.
Okay, so these were like everyday objects that he chose and then presented as art.
What do you mean, like a chair or something?
Yeah, like the most famous example is a urinal that he titled Fountain.
A urinal as art?
Yes, and he signed it with a fake name, R. Mutt.
Oh, wow. That's pretty bold.
Right, it was this huge challenge to like traditional ideas of art and skill.
Like, what even is art?
Exactly, it took a lot of guts to do that.
Yeah, to just go against the grain like that.
Totally, and the source makes a really interesting point about successful creators.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily fearless, you know.
Yeah, they still get nervous and doubtful.
Yeah, but their confidence comes from being willing to make mistakes.
And from being assertive about their work.
Yeah, and sometimes even a little bit, well, cunning.
Cunning.
Yeah, like knowing how to navigate the complexities of their field, you know, the politics and the gatekeepers.
Oh, right. You got to be smart about it, too.
Exactly. Okay, here's another really key insight from Change Your Mind that builds on this idea of like challenging the status quo.
Okay.
It quotes Orville Wright.
One of the Wright brothers.
Yeah. He said, if we all worked on the assumption that what is accepted as true is really true, there would be little hope of advance.
That's deep.
I know, right? It perfectly captures the mindset of a creative thinker.
Yeah, it's about questioning everything.
Exactly. Don't just accept things blindly.
Right.
Think for yourself, investigate, and come to your own conclusions.
So, like, don't just follow the crowd.
Exactly. And Change Your Mind uses Charles Darwin's story to illustrate this.
Darwin?
Yeah, the guy who came up with the theory of evolution.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was a radical idea at the time.
Yeah, it challenged, like, everything people believed about the natural world.
Totally. And the source points out that Darwin actually didn't do that well in his early academic career.
Really?
Yeah, the medical faculty at Cambridge, they basically said he wasn't cut out for a career in the church.
Wow. So he was kind of a failure?
Well, in that context, yeah.
But then that kind of freed him up, didn't it?
Oh, exactly. He wasn't bound by all the conventional thinking of the time.
And he was able to observe the world with fresh eyes.
Yeah. And then, of course, there was his famous voyage on the HMS Beagle, where he collected those 13 different species of finches from the Galapagos Islands.
The finches.
The finches, which became like a cornerstone of his theory.
Right. Right.
But initially, even when he showed the finches to this ornithologist, John Gould, Gould tried to fit them into the existing scientific understanding.
Like that species were fixed and unchanging.
Exactly. But Darwin, because of his, unconventional background and his curious mind, he questioned that assumption.
And he realized that the finches were actually all related.
Yeah, they were just different variations that had adapted to their specific environments.
Amazing.
And that's what led him to this groundbreaking theory of evolution.
So the takeaway here is to question everything.
Yeah, don't just rely on pre-existing information.
Right. Use your own critical thinking skills.
Exactly. Okay, moving on to something super practical.
Okay, I'm always up for some practical advice.
Change your mind. It stresses the importance of capturing those fleeting ideas.
Oh yeah, those moments of inspiration that just pop into your head.
Yeah, those, because even the most brilliant ideas can vanish if you don't write them down or sketch them out.
I'm so bad at that.
I know, me too. It's so easy to just forget.
Yeah. You think you'll remember, but then poof, gone.
Exactly. But think about all those creative giants throughout history.
Okay.
Beethoven, he always had his musical sketchbooks with him, jotting down melodies.
Oh, right.
Van Gogh, he made drawing a daily habit.
Yeah.
And Da Vinci's notebooks, filled with sketches and inventions and thoughts.
I love the notebooks.
They're amazing, right?
Yeah.
And those notebooks, they weren't always neat and organized. No, Da Vinci's were kind of chaotic.
Okay.
Sometimes he'd write things backwards, minimal punctuation, like just a stream of consciousness.
So it was really just about getting those ideas down.
Exactly. Don't worry about making it perfect, just capture it.
Right, before it disappears.
Yeah. And the advice here is to always have something with you to record your thoughts.
Like a notebook or a voice recorder or the Notes app on your phone.
Anything. Just make it a habit.
Yeah, make it a ritual.
Because as Change Your Mind says, you often don't know the true value of an idea until you've actually recorded it.
It's like giving those ideas a chance to exist outside of your head.
Yeah, and then you can go back and explore them later.
And see where they lead you.
Exactly. Okay, let's talk about a feeling that I think most creative people experience at some point.
Okay.
Envy. Yeah, you see someone else's work and you're like, man, I wish I had done that.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely felt that. It can be so discouraging.
Right. But Change Your Mind, it suggests reframing that envy as motivation.
Wait, what? How?
Well, instead of letting that feeling get you down, use it to fuel your own creative fire.
So turn that negative energy into something positive.
Exactly. When you find yourself saying, I wish I had done that, follow it up with, okay, well, how can I try something similar or inspired by that?
Okay, so use it as a jumping off point.
Yes. And the book tells this really cool story about Francis Bacon.
Bacon, the painter.
Yeah. He went to a big Picasso exhibition and was totally blown away.
Of course, who wouldn't be?
Right. And he had that, I wish I had done that feeling, big time.
Yeah.
But then he decided to channel that feeling into his own work.
So he started painting like Picasso.
Well, in a way, yeah. You could see the influence in his early paintings.
Okay.
But eventually he developed his own unique style. And later on, Picasso even admired Bacon's work.
Wow, that's cool.
I know, right?
What?
And the book mentions that contemporary artists like Damien Hirst, they now look at Bacon's work with that same, I wish I had done that feeling.
It's like a cycle of inspiration.
It is. So pay attention to those moments when you feel creative envy.
Okay.
Don't let them get you down. Instead, figure out what it is about that other person's work that resonates with you, and use it as inspiration to try something new.
Yeah, turn that envy into fuel.
Exactly. All right, let's wrap up with one final but super important point from Change Your Mind.
Okay, what's that?
Fear.
Fear.
Yeah, you know that feeling you get at the beginning of any creative project?
Yeah, like when you're facing a blank page or an empty canvas.
Exactly, that feeling of anxiety and uncertainty.
It can be paralyzing.
It can. And the source points out that even super successful artists experience that fear.
Really? I always thought they were just naturally confident.
It's easy to think that, but it's not true. They still feel the fear.
But they don't let it stop them.
Exactly. They find a way to connect with that fear and turn it into energy.
Okay, how?
The book gives some examples, like even big performers like Rod Stewart and Elvis Presley, they got stage fright.
No way.
Yeah, sometimes pretty bad, like nausea and cold sweats.
Wow.
And Mel Gibson too, apparently.
So it's not just a beginner thing.
No. And there's this great story about Laurence Olivier,
Okay.
one of the greatest actors of the 20th century. He suffered from really bad stage fright.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Sometimes he was so nervous that he had to be physically pushed onto the stage.
You're kidding.
I know. But once he started acting, the fear would melt away.
And he'd just lose himself in the performance.
Exactly. So the takeaway here is that fear is normal.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
It is. And it's not about eliminating the fear.
No.
It's about like channeling that nervous energy into something positive.
Using it to fuel your creativity.